Okay, so I have another question asking about how to construct backgrounds. I've talked about backgrounds a little bit, but I'll go into that a little further, and I shall paint some stuff for you. This is very quick. I'm only going to work on this for a couple of seconds, but basically, I think I mentioned that you should start at a thumbnail size and work your way out. Um, so I've literally got one layer. I think my pressure sensitivity is okay. So let's just darken that out. So I've got like a mid-tone going on, and I am going to get my brushes out. Right. Start at large brushes. I'm going to completely make up what I'm doing here. Let's say I'm going to go for a hilly scene. You can literally be rough as you can. Let's add some mountains in the background here. This is seriously rough. And I'm only using what I consider is called the detailed brush. Let's get rid of some details there. I'm not going too dark or light either. Let's add a little bit more light into this. I'm also starting monochromatic. This is easier because you eliminate the colours, and that makes it easier for you to see tonal values, because that is very important. Let's bring that up there. So as I mentioned before, a very good idea is to be proactive and actually go out and see the stuff for yourself. This will also increase your visual library. So I think Feng Zhu has mentioned this several times, is the more you go out and see stuff, the more that you have imprinted in your brain an idea of how a certain thing looks. I think he used the example of castles. If you don't go out and look at castles, you've got a very cartoon kind of look on what a castle will look like. So if I literally, probably Disney-esque, I would say, that kind of Neuschwanstein inspired style castle with the large turrets. They might be a bit pointy and stuff like that, but a lot of castles didn't really like that. Neuschwanstein, which is a castle in Bavaria, which is based on the Disney castle, is a lot later on. It was built by Ludwig II, and he was, I think, from the 19th century. Whereas a lot of castles that were used properly as fortifications looked vastly different from that. Castles themselves really, really kind of developed over the hundreds of years that they were around. There's also a difference between fortification and a castle. Castles were less inhabited. Fortifications, there's a wide variety of uses for fortifications, down to Roman army fortifications to city walls in the 12th century. So there's a vast array of different styles in different areas of the world as well. Let's add a little bit of foliage. So this is extremely rough. Let's start adding certain little things. From here you can quite easily add stuff. Let's add a new layer. You've got a character here. Let's use the silhouette tool. I'm just gonna add a guy. Let's maybe add another guy. His head is very big, so I'm going to make that a little smaller. Let's just get rid of the feet. So as you can see, there's something coming through. It's not very detailed, but it's something that you can develop through the painting itself, and it's going to take time. I would say the most important thing is practice, and go out and get the reference as well, because that's going to really help your understanding of how a particular environment works. Let's kind of fog this out a little further. Let's add some foreground elements, so we might have a tree here. That's a bit too far into the background. Nah, let's get rid of that, I don't like it. Anyway, as I was saying, practice is key. The more backgrounds you do, the better you get at it. And you'll find that over time your skills will improve. Make sure you try and challenge yourself, but don't get too stressed. Make sure you're pushing yourself, but not too hard, otherwise you'll be you'll stress out, and that's no good. You're pushing yourself too far. Seems like a very desolate environment I'm illustrating here. Let's add a little river. There we go. I would say that using the silhouette tool is quite handy. You can quickly create a solid element to a painting using the silhouette tool. But again, you can do that just as easily with a paintbrush. Oops. Let's get that selection back, and I just wanted to darken that area down a little bit. But again, I'm still being extremely rough. Let's make that there, just a little water. Kind of a water environment at the back there. Make sure that you've got a horizon line and you recognize how the environment is working. There you go. I'm going to lighten up this area here and just make sure I've got a horizon line of sorts. You know, other things you should be worrying about is the light, what's going on, what is going on in the painting in terms of your characters. You want to tell a story. There we go. Let's add some light on these guys, otherwise they're pretty much 2D characters. Let's add a little bit of... I'm going to do the most typical thing here is give this guy a flag. Whee! Flapping in the wind. Very fantasy-like. Let's add some tall grass. And maybe a fence. and you can work into this painting just through detail, and eventually add colour. Now if you're going to add colour, I'm going to do it in this tiny area here. Let's flatten it all down. I'm a guy who tends to try and use the least layers as possible because it becomes a lot more easier to navigate around your painting. Otherwise you'll have certain things you can't access, and it's just a lot easier to keep it on to one layer if you can. It's always editable if you make a mistake. So let's use the soft brush, and I'm going to use overlay, and let's go for a green. And this is something you can work into. That's a bit too green. Let's lighten it up a little. Let's get rid of some of it because there's water. Again, I'm being really quick and rough here, but it's just a basic idea of, you know, what you're going to do. Just to start off, here we go. Let's give these guys a little bit of colour. Let's give them red so they can stick out a little bit. This painting here in particular is quite desaturated, but don't worry about that too much because you can actually just go into the painting itself and paint it on. Let's give it a little bit of a yellow background. That's more sunset like. There we go. Let's give it a little bit more light and warmth. So, and some cools. So there you go. Super duper quick. You know, go on another hour and you'd probably find that this painting would have developed into something a little bit more refined. But I hope that gives you a little bit more of an explanation of how to start a painting that's background. The main thing is a background, and not characters or anything like that. I hope that helps a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to move on to the next question.